This is a WGNS Action Line, talking with Rutherford County newsmakers about what matters most to you. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
With us in studio this morning, we have, straight from AdamsPlace, Executive Director Terry Dill. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Scott. It's good to be back.
A little gray out there, but I feel like the weather's getting more Christmas-like.
It most definitely is. The cold weather last week that we had really got me in the mood for Christmas, and hopefully maybe a white Christmas. Who knows?
That would be awesome. Now, is AdamsPlace all decorated, ready to go?
Oh, yes. We decorate usually the week before Thanksgiving. We like for everything to be pretty because we've got so many families and friends that come in to celebrate Thanksgiving. We want them to go ahead and get in the Christmas spirit when they walk in the front door.
What do families do at places like AdamsPlace whenever, their loved one lives there full time in assisted living, let's say? What usually happens? Do those residents leave and go to the family's house, or the families come to you?
A little bit of both. We've got a lot of guests that come in. We're fortunate to have guest rooms available for out-of-town families so they can come in and stay in-house with their loved one if they want to. But I would say, it depends on which portion of campus somebody lives in. In independent living, a lot of our folks still, they may go back home with their families. The ones that don't enjoy traveling so much, the families will come in and stay with them. And then as you get into higher levels of care, it just depends on the residents' abilities and their likes and dislikes for leaving what they call home.
One thing I've noticed over the years about Rutherford County is that we are literally a melting pot of just different backgrounds, people from all over the country, all over the world, really.
Right.
And with that being said, when it comes to holiday seasons like Christmas, you really do have people coming from all over the globe to visit with loved ones.
We do. We're very fortunate. We have residents from all over the United States. They come in from California, from Michigan, from Florida, and every state in between. And so their families, some of whom are still living in those areas, they'll fly here to be able to visit with their loved one.
That's a great thing, too, because Tennessee is a fairly easy state to get to, I think, for most people.
Yeah, it is.
Especially Murfreesboro, being right in the center.
Yes, definitely.
So what all is happening this time of year, other than families coming in, but what all is happening at AdamsPlace?
So December is always a really busy month, I think, for any kind of a senior community. But, we like to kick off the season with having Santa Claus come in for a visit. So he comes in and he goes to the different areas. He was with the independent living residents last week for a few hours, and we were able to celebrate with hot cocoa and cookies and that sort of thing, and made lots of pictures with residents and their loved ones around the tree in Santa's lap. And then he visited with the assisted living and the continuing care residents earlier in the week. So,
I think it's really important for those who are seniors to get into a place like AdamsPlace because of that community feeling. I mean, it allows them to really have a new set of friends and just
absolutely
almost start a new life.
It really is. And one of the things that I find so unique about AdamsPlace in particular, and I've been with a couple of different communities in Rutherford County since I started doing this many years ago. And one of the things that's just really unique about AdamsPlace, again, we've got people coming from all over the country that live with us. And it doesn't matter if you're north, south, east, or west, the southern hospitality of Murfreesboro just really overcomes everybody. And even those from up north, they become true Southerners in a very quick time. And so, they come in maybe a little bit hesitant if they don't already know people in the community. But within a couple of weeks, they are surrounded by a new group of friends and, lifelong friends. And it goes beyond the resident relationships and even extends into the children and grandchildren. They become very connected. And, they're concerned about one another and they want to know how their kids are doing and that sort of thing. So it's really a unique community.
As we age, and this happens to everybody, we lose friends, we lose family members. And, if we're not careful before we know it, we're going to be all by ourselves. And that's probably, I would say, one of the more dangerous things to be, all by yourself without any close friendships or family members nearby. And that's another reason why I think going to places like AdamsPlace is important.
Agreed. Isolation is a very destructive thing. It can take a toll on us physically, mentally, emotionally. So when you can get into to an environment where you can have friends, and the beauty of it is, if you want to hang out with your friends today, you can without having to get out in the weather to go visit. If you want to just really hang out and be alone for today, just for a few hours, you need to reset, you can do that as well. But you've got the freedom to be able to come and go and do as you please, and have everybody right there at your fingertips if you want them there.
And you've been in this industry a long time, and I'm sure you have seen those stories where, children of one of your residents, they come to you and they say, we really want mom, we really want dad to get into here. Because they are alone, and
right.
We're seeing a path they're taking that's just, it's not a good place.
Yes, I would agree with that. That happens a lot when individuals go into assisted living in particular. In independent living, a lot of times it's the individual themselves that realizes, hey, I'm sitting at home alone. I'm not getting out. I'm not doing anything. I'm not exercising anymore. I'm not eating right anymore. Maybe I need to move to a community. So when they take that step to go into independent living on their own, they're able to make those selections on their own. And then when they get into, if they stay home to where they're not really truly independent any longer, then a lot of times it is the family coming in, recognizing that something's going on with mom or dad, especially around the holidays. The out-of-town kids come home to visit for the holidays and suddenly realize, wait a minute, mom's not doing quite as well as it sounded like on the phone.
Yeah, and again, Terry Deal with us from AdamsPlace. When you have those situations where somebody is alone and one of their family members, they're the first ones that talk to you about getting them in to a place like AdamsPlace, what kind of differences have you seen in personalities from, when they first got there versus a month later?
Oh, there's a lot of different things that you can watch for. One, I think one of the first things would be mobility and just overall general wellness. And what I mean by that is if I'm sitting at home in my 2,000 square foot house, walking from one end to the other, eating popcorn at night and cereal in the morning, I'm not getting the proper nutrition. I'm not getting the proper exercise. So when they get into an environment where they're eating regularly, and they're having to get out and walk a little bit more than 30 feet to get from point A to point B, then you start seeing the physical improvements. But as they do get out and become social or step back into a life of being social, then you start seeing the personalities emerge and seeing the light come back in their eyes. If they've been at home, if they've been isolated, now they're starting to have friendships again. And friendships and socialization are huge. I don't care what age we are, but especially, as you said, when we get older, we start losing those around us. And the more we lose, the more isolated we become. So you step into a community with 100 neighbors, and it's really a lot of fun watching it.
We had a psychiatrist on the air, I guess it was late last week, and we were talking about how the human brain, it's not designed to be alone. Right. I mean, you have to have some type of social interaction, or it changes you in a lot of ways.
It does. I mean, I talk to my kids regularly. It's like if you're alone, you get in your own headspace. And when you get in your own headspace, all kinds of negative conversations can take place.
What's going on here?
If you're in a bad spot, go hang out with your friends. Go for a walk. Get some fresh air. Go get an ice cream sundae. Do something. Get out of your own headspace. And
nutrition, that's huge. I know you brought up, the people starting to eat regular meals again after they move in. But nutrition is huge. And I know if I skip a meal throughout the day, I feel miserable by the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, it affects us.
And I'm not a good cook. So that you've got that taken care of.
We do have. I like to encourage new residents to bring their stretchy pants. They're gonna, when you start eating right again, you're gonna put back on a little bit of weight, because a lot of residents come to me and they say, I've lost 10, 15, 20 pounds in the last 6 months, and they're gonna find it pretty quick when they move in.
Rutherford County is continuing to grow like crazy. I know a study by UT, it says that I believe within the next 5 years, we're going to be at a little over 400,000 residents, because we're already at about 380.
Right.
And, another 15 years, 20 years from now, we're eventually going to hit 500 something thousand, then 700 something thousand at some point or another. But with growth like that, where does Adams Place stand in planning for the future?
So we have always been a very forward-thinking company. We're really blessed that Dr. Carl Adams had the vision for senior care that he had. When he opened National Healthcare Corporation in the mid-'70s, he had a vision not only to change the face of continuing care, to make that last phase of life something very good and positive for our patients, but he had a vision for a campus setting like Adams Place so that we could provide housing for every level of retirement, in essence. So Adams Place, when we opened 27 years ago, we opened in 1997. And when we opened, we were a 55 and over community. Started out with continuing care and rehab, which is called the Healthcare Center. Then we got that going, then opened up our assisted living. And then in 1999, we opened the independent living. Because of Dr. Adams's forward thinking, there was always a plan on the table for future expansion, whatever that looked like. And we stepped into that a little bit, probably about 10 years or so ago when we opened our memory care unit. And now we are on the cusp of expanding our independent living. We're going to develop an active aging community. And what that means is it will offer both apartment-style living and townhomes to choose from. And this is intended more for the individual who is looking at stepping into the first phase of retirement. Get out from under the homeownership responsibilities and go ahead and get onto a campus, a continuing care retirement community campus, so that they have access to every possible level of care that they're going to need for the rest of their lives. But this new setting is these residents may not want the amenities of the existing independent living. They really do want to have more freedoms, more independence, maybe do their own cooking, their own cleaning. They still have their own cars, so they don't need a driver service and those types of things. So that will be an expansion. We're in early phases of that right now. Hope to have it developed within the next 3 to 5 years.
And what age group are we talking about for that next step of moving in to this new facility?
So everything on campus always has been 55 and over, but the reality of the ages that we move in right now, independent living average age is 83. So if you look at that, then the active aging community, even though the campus is 55 and over, the reality is it'll probably be the 65 to 80-year-olds. And then 80 and above choosing either the existing independent living or assisted living based on their needs.
A lot has changed over the years, and one of those things that has changed is the fact that people are retiring later in life, folks are working longer, and with that being said, you are seeing people, I think, live longer, but people are being a lot more active when compared to 10, 20 years ago.
Absolutely. You think independent living, 70, 75, 80, 85 years old. I've got folks well into their 90s that are still doing exercise, still driving, and they don't scare me on the road. That's an important part of it. But they're still very active. They're keeping their minds sharp. They're playing bridge. They're doing different types of games that will keep their mind sharp. They're staying physically active. They're eating properly. So aging today is definitely not what it was 30 years ago.
Not at all. There's a lot of 80-year-olds out there who, when I see them, if somebody told me their age, there's no way I would ever guess that. They look a lot younger.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of residents in their early 90s that if you walked up and introduced yourself today, you would assume early 80s at the most. And that inspires me, I need to step it up a little bit. I need to be doing a little bit better because I want to age like that one.
That's right. Now, when Dr. Adams started that very first facility, when he opened the first facility, it was, I don't know what the right word would be, but it was cutting edge. It was totally different from anything else in the state whenever that one first opened. And right. I don't know if it's a matter of he just had his finger on the pulse as to what people wanted when they aged, or if he just had a lot of conversations with a lot of doctors, nurses before making those first steps.
I think it had to have been a combination of the two. You know, I wish that I had had opportunity to meet him before he passed and ask him those kinds of questions, because when he did develop the first 14 centers, which were the continuing care, it was so that he could transform the mentality around nursing homes. You know, nursing homes used to have a really bad rap, and it was well deserved, honestly, several decades ago. And as he was in his medical practice, he had an incredible vision, not only for what the patients needed in the 70s, but he was able to look 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road and kind of project. So I feel certain that a lot of it was just his own vision and what he had seen through his own medical practice. But I think he must have been surrounded by a lot of really wise individuals that were able to speak into the project. And when I say project, I mean just all of the senior care that NHC does provide.
It probably took a lot of doctors like him over the years to really change the way we look at medicine, because today we do look at medicine a lot different than 10 or 15 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about even when AdamsPlace opened in 1997, continuing care, assisted living, independent living, and then 10, 15, 20 years later, there is such a desperate need for memory care. So that was why 10 years or so ago, we opened our memory care. And there's not nearly enough of that available anywhere in the country, especially Rutherford County. But because of the vision that he established for what he wanted for seniors, we're able to now step into this next phase of development. You know, if you had asked him in the early 90s, in 2024, is there going to be a need for active aging? He probably would have looked at you with a question on his face like, what is active aging? What does that even mean? I don't know, but I know that the seasons will change, and then with that, the needs will change. As we age, because we are better at aging, we are able to evolve in and adjust our campus according to what the current need is, if that makes sense.
Now, how many years have you been in this field of work?
I started in 2011. I have to go back and remember dates of, kids and schooling and that sort of thing. So yeah, I finished my master's program in 2010, and then I started in this industry in 2011.
So in that time frame, have you even been surprised about some of the changes in this field? Talking about assisted living, nursing home care, all that?
Oh, absolutely. Again, in the health perspective of what is available, the general idea surrounding aging, a lot of times people think of going into senior living is, okay, you're going to stick me in a home, okay? And that mentality has changed a lot. I've seen it even in the last 10 or so years, that people are beginning to understand it's not an old school nursing home. It is truly a home. When you step onto a campus like AdamsPlace, you are moving from one home to another. I tell potential residents all the time, I don't want you to change your style of living. I just want you to change the address from where you're doing it. And so, the individuals that I saw in 2011, 2012, people were making moves into assisted living, really when they were not assisted living appropriate. They had really waited a little bit too long and were really more on the cusp of needing continuing care. And I think that has started to change. People are realizing that if I make a move when I'm a little bit healthier, I can truly get the benefit and the enjoyment out of living there, instead of moving in and realizing, I need to move to the next higher level of care because I'm really not at the level that I thought I was.
I know when I was a kid, I used to envision whenever I heard, we're going to go see your grandmother at the nursing home, is what I would hear.
Oh, yeah.
But even though I hadn't been there yet, I envisioned that it's this place up on a hill that kind of looks like the Bates Motel.
Sure.
And, you know, she's going to be in a wheelchair on the front porch. And that's how people looked at it back in the 70s and the 80s. That's exactly how people looked at it.
Yeah.
But they no longer see it that way.
No. You know, I call AdamsPlace, at least the independent living portion, my landlocked cruise ship, because they are active. You know, there's a full schedule of activities that they have to choose. Do I want to do this or do I want to do that? We've got residents not only in independent living, but also in assisted living that are still driving. And again, they're still safe to do so. So why not? I want to be able to drive when I'm older, but they're still traveling the world. They're still volunteering in the community. We've got an incredible base of residents on our own campus that volunteer on our campus. So they may get up in the morning in independent living and go over to continuing care and call bingo, or, you know, read somebody the newspaper, or bring them a cup of coffee or something like that. So our residents are very, very active. So yeah, the days of sitting in the wheelchair on the front porch of the Bates Motel, those days are long since gone.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, yes.
Have a future. So in cases where, let's say, a couple is living in assisted living, and one of them is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it becomes maybe too hard for the husband or the wife to take care of the other spouse, what do you do in those cases?
Well, that's the beauty of a campus like AdamsPlace, because we have each of the different levels of care. And when I say levels of care, what I mean is independent living, assisted living, memory care, and continuing care. So you can be on any portion of that campus and get the next level of assistance that is needed. So whether the husband and wife are in independent living or in assisted living together, if one of their needs exceeds what can be done either in that setting or by the spouse, then on the same campus, we can still accommodate that next level of care. So you may have one spouse, and I've got several situations like this right now where I've got one spouse in independent living and another spouse either in memory care or in continuing care. And then we've got situations where one spouse may be in assisted living and the other has advanced into continuing care. Well, the beauty of the campus is you can still, depending on where you are, you can either just walk across campus to go visit them, or you can walk down the hall. You know, if you're in assisted living and your loved one is in continuing care, you don't even have to get out on the weather. You just walk down the hall and go spend as much time with them as you want to.
And when you walk into AdamsPlace, it's like walking into a grand hotel. You know, it's Opryland Hotel, I guess, would be one description of it, but it's got the high ceilings. Now, take us to that memory care side. What is that like for those who've never seen it?
So memory care is really an incredibly beautiful community. Memory care is designed to be a smaller community, usually anywhere from maybe 18 to 25 or 30 rooms. With AdamsPlace Memory Care, we have 23 rooms. They are all private rooms, so each resident has their own home that they call theirs. They go in, they close their door, they've got their personal furniture that they know. It's creature comfort types of things. Beautifully designed. Memory care is typically only going to be one story, so that's what ours is. Nursing station and kitchen kind of centrally located, and then community spaces where we can get the residents to come out and do exercise, participate in bingo, different types of games to keep them not only physically active, but also cognitively active as much as they're able to. And then we have a beautiful little fenced-in courtyard so that our memory care residents can get outside and enjoy the fresh air, because that's important to all of us. So it's designed in such a way that the resident to caregiver ratio is lower than you're going to find in an assisted living, so that one person is maybe focusing on 4 or 5 residents instead of maybe 10 or 12 residents. And it really allows us to have a person-centered approach to everything that we do.
Now, I know Alzheimer's looks different from one person to another.
It does.
But if somebody out there listening, let's say, you know, their loved one has just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, what are some of the key things we should do, you know, before we take that step of maybe talking to you about Adam's Place. But what are some of the things we should do as far as, what happens when they start talking about XYZ, even though the year is off by 20, 30 years? Do we just go along with it and just smile?
You do. I've always heard it said that you enter their reality. For instance, if we're sitting here having a conversation and you are convinced it is 1975, it's not going to do anything other than increase your agitation for me to sit here and argue with you and try to convince you it's 2024. So I may as well just talk to you as if it is 1975 and let you live in a place of calm and peace. Certainly if it is an issue of safety, then we need to not enter that reality. Say you're having hallucinations or paranoia or something like that. I don't need to feed into that. So at that point, you really need to get some professional assistance. Pull in primary care doctors, pull in neurologists. Medications can help with those things, but you've got to have the professional help.
And when you're talking about a spouse and another spouse, and one of them has Alzheimer's, the other one doesn't, these things can grow very frustrating very quickly, especially if you have not dealt with this before. You don't know really what you're stepping into or they're stepping into. And so I could see where, when you talk about saying, well, it's 1970 and this is what happened and this is what's happening now. When that other spouse is full and they're stressed out, I bet it's hard for them just to go along with this sometimes. So I could see where it would become a huge burden very quickly.
It could. And, one of the things that I see probably more frequently when it's spousal situations like that, in a spousal situation, if I'm the caregiver, say to my husband, I can't get away. I don't have a break. I am with you literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with no break unless the kids come by to help out a little bit and then they leave. When you go into a community like Adam's Place, we've got fresh new faces every 8 or 12 hours, bringing in new caregivers, new nursing staff, that sort of thing, that are able to come with a fresh, relaxed, rested perspective. So what happens in spousal situations, and I've seen it happen both where the spouse was cognitively impaired and where there were physical impairments, the healthier spouse usually will end up getting sick or injured providing care. Well, now the kids are faced with two crisis situations because the healthy parent now needs some kind of assistance because they've gotten hurt or are sick. And because they can't provide care, now all of a sudden we've got to provide crisis care for the other parent.
That part of it right there, where the caretaker, their health can quickly turn upside down and they become much worse off than the one they're taking care of.
Absolutely.
Because it is a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety on them in order to take care of their loved one. So if you don't monitor that closely and you don't seek the right professional help, then you are going to be in a really bad situation quickly.
You are.
So it makes sense to talk to you or somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times it's just a matter of calling, asking some questions, coming by. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of people still have the wheelchair on the front porch of the Bates Motel mentality, even though that it has not existed for decades. But there's still a fear. You think about the age of the population that we're serving, people that are 80 to 100 years old. Well, 80 to 100 years old, they still think the old school nursing home. So they're like, please don't put me in a home because they think they know what they're expecting. Get them in the front door. Let them see that the community is absolutely beautiful. Let them see that it's a home. It's not a place that we're sticking you. So it's really important that family and the individuals themselves, when possible, can come in, ask a lot of questions. The sooner you can start asking these questions, the better. I talk to people all of the time on the independent living side of things where they're pre-planning. They walk in my office and say, I don't have any intention of going anywhere for the next 5 years, but I want to know that I've made my own decisions so that my kids don't have to, so that I am in control of the way that I age. And that right there is key. It is so important for the individual to be involved in the decision making. So, I may not need anything for 5 or 10 years, but let's go ahead and have those conversations, make those decisions so that the kids don't have to make the decisions in a crisis situation.
Again, Terry Deal, Executive Director of AdamsPlace here in Murfreesboro, on the air with us. We're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, let's talk a little bit about what some of the questions are that people should ask whenever they're trying to choose that perfect location to call home in the future.
Okay.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Santa Claus is coming to Animal City. Hi, this is Amanda. Santa will be at our store Saturday, December 14th from 12 to 3. He's ready to take pictures with your pets and family. We welcome all types of critters. It's the perfect way to enjoy the holiday and support Music City Animal Rescue. Bring the whole crew, two-legged and four-legged, and join the fun. Mark your calendar for December 14th at Animal City. You'll find us at 919 Northwest Broad Street right here in Murfreesboro. We'll see you there.
This is Peter Demas at Demas's Restaurant. Demas's offers gift cards that you can get in any value. Those times where someone gives you gifts you weren't really prepared. It's one of those things that's nice and easy to hand back out, but they're amazing gifts for teachers, for family and friends, and we always offer specials depending on how many gift cards that you get as well. You can go straight down to the restaurant, and our cashiers are happy to help you with any of those gift cards. Demas's Restaurant, 1115 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro.
The food's delicious at AdamsPlace.
Well, I'm afraid the food is too good. I have a problem turning down the desserts.
Alan Butcher at AdamsPlace.
But the food is wonderful. Danny and all the cooks and the servers back there are just wonderful to us. We have plenty to eat.
Hi, this is Terry Deal at AdamsPlace. Call me for more information about AdamsPlace. Phone 615-904-9111.
AdamsPlace on Memorial, across from Walmart.
We're excited to announce that Capstar Bank is now officially a division of Old National Bank. All those friends you've made while banking here over the years, well, they're still there. And so are the delicious, warm, homemade cookies.
In Murfreesboro at 2230 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Everything you enjoyed at Capstar, still there at Old National Bank. Old National Bank, ready to serve you.
Old National Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Terry Deal, Executive Director of AdamsPlace, on the air and in studio with us this morning. So I know folks ask a lot of questions whenever they first sit down with you to talk about that next step in living. Mm-hmm. I'm sure one of those questions deals with finances. How do I go about paying for this? What is covered by maybe my insurance or what do I do?
So, finances are always a big issue because you need to know that you've got enough money to last for the rest of your life. And independent living, assisted living, the things that AdamsPlace provides typically are going to be a private pay industry. Now, when you do get into continuing care, which is terminology for old school nursing home, you have either a private pay option, which is what AdamsPlace is, and then you have Medicaid facilities such as NHC Murfreesboro. So, if you don't have the finances for a continuing care environment that you can pay privately, then there are Medicaid options. As far as independent living and assisted living are concerned, in independent living, that's going to strictly be a private pay industry. And then assisted living could be private pay, or if an individual has long-term care insurance, then that insurance would kick in depending on whether the individual has need of assistance with what is called activities of daily living.
So are there also options as far as, let's say somebody's working with the bank, their home is paid for, they're working with a real estate agent. I mean, can you combine all of those different avenues in order to figure out how to be able to move into here and pay for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anywhere that you can pull funds from. Some people will use the sale of their house to do an investment with independent living, which gives them some perks, if you will, across campus to save a little bit of money in their lifetime. So some people may move in rental and then choose to invest with us later after the sale of a home. I always encourage people, if they don't have to dig into assets, unless it's something that's liquid, leave it alone. Try to figure out how to be here. I'm very upfront about this is exactly what it's going to cost you. There's not going to be any hidden fees. This is how you can budget your lifestyle. So yeah, it just depends on which level of care you're in as to what your financial options are going to be. And that's where questions come into play. It's just so important to call us. I have had conversations with people over the years where they call in and say, okay, I know I can't afford AdamsPlace, but I'm just curious. And I talk to them about it and they're like, oh, wait a minute. And now they live with me. So, the questions, it always comes down to pick up the phone, walk in the door, do something, ask questions, and get the right information. Do not rely on your neighbors. Call us to get the right information.
Because I would guess the goal is to be able to move into a facility and be able to still buy Christmas presents every year.
Absolutely.
Because you're retired. You want to have fun, too.
Yeah, you do want to have fun. You want to travel. You want to be able to go on the trips. If we're going out to the theater, you want to be able to go, too.
Yeah, I would guess that there's a lot of avenues that people don't really understand as far as paying for that actually become a lot more clear and easier to understand once you sit down and talk to somebody.
Exactly. It all, we can make up all kinds of things in our heads, but if we will just ask questions of the people that have the answers, then we'll be able to plan accordingly.
For anybody helping a loved one make the decision to move into, let's say, assisted living, what would you say the first question they should ask, no matter where they're going? The first question they should ask should be what?
Oh, there's a lot of first questions. There really are. I think that really depends on their loved one's situation, okay? If they're looking at independent living, the questions are going to be different than they would be if they're in assisted living. So you really have to look at what the individual's needs are. If you're looking into assisted living and mom needs assistance with dressing, bathing, grooming, toileting, can you provide that care? Yes, we can. How much is that care going to cost? Because there's going to be not only the cost of room and board, but then there's going to be cost associated with provision of care. So you really have to, and I realize this is becoming a very generic answer, but you really have to look at what that individual scenario is. I have residents that come and say, or potential residents, I want, say, a single lady, I want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay, why do you want a 2-bedroom? Well, because my grandson visits 1 weekend a year. Okay, I've got a guest room for that. Let's save you some money and get you into a smaller area. And that way you've got more fun money, if you will. So it's not only about the prospective resident asking the right questions, it's also about us asking the right questions to make sure that we are truly meeting their needs.
Now, what is the largest space, the biggest square footage unit, and what are the smaller ones?
So independent living is going to range from 700 square feet to 1,500 square feet. Assisted living, their largest, I believe, is right at 700. The smallest is in the 300 category, a studio. As you get into higher levels of care, you really don't need as much space anymore. So that's why, and I think this is going to be the case no matter where you look, independent living apartments are always going to be larger. Assisted living gets a little smaller. Memory care gets a little bit smaller. Continuing care gets a little bit smaller from that. Because as we age, as our needs increase, the amount of space that we need really decreases.
So that independent living, that lifestyle, I'm sure one of the big questions would be, what about security? Is there security on staff 24/7?
Yes.
So that's probably one of those questions.
That is one of those questions. So like on our campus, we have security cameras at every door. We have staff in every area of the building. Independent living is a separate building from the rest of campus. So we do have security personnel in the building 24 hours a day. They're there to not only monitor the doors and make sure that everything remains secure, but also be there in the event of a resident having an emergency. And then in assisted living and beyond, there's caregivers on duty 24 hours a day to provide security.
Again, Terry Deal with us this morning, Executive Director of AdamsPlace, and we're already out of time. Folks should just stop by or give you a call sometime.
Stop by or give us a call. I always encourage stopping by to see us how we are in everyday life. But if you need to sit down and talk availability and money, it's a really good idea to have an appointment with either myself or one of the other directors so that we can make sure we've got enough time dedicated to spend with you.
Sounds great. Well, Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Scott. I hope you have a Merry Christmas.
You too.